everyone. This is Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO, Maryland's early stage technology engine. We record these, I think as most of you know, and we're recording this on the Friday of the PGA Championship. And I love golf. I love golf. I'm a horrible golfer, but I love the sport. And they're actually playing it in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I spent a number of years. So I have a lot of friends who've been texting me about it. So I got my little golf gear on as I talk to not just a friend of TEDCO's, but a friend of the States. This is probably one of my more unusual ones because we're gonna our perspective is gonna be global. We're gonna talk a little global here and a little relationship with another country. So I'm here to introduce David Speer, the executive director of the Maryland Israeli Development Center. David, thank you for being on TEDCO Talks today.
Thank you, Troy. It's really an honor to be here and looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah.
I was checking out the PGA Championship yesterday, and I saw that Rory was winning, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, so obviously by the time people see this, we'll already know. But yeah, Rory was looking good. Tiger not so good. Yeah. But you know, the fact that he just came back is I mean, that to me that's just a minor miracle given everything he's been through. So we'll see how the weekend plays out. And the other thing, big sporting event here in the Baltimore area is Pimlico. Pimlico is going to be run tomorrow, and so again, by the time you all hear this, we'll already know what's going to happen there. But David, thank you for joining. Now you are a Baltimore guy, right? You're a Baltimore native. Who, I love your story a little bit because you're a Baltimore native who decided to go to the University of Vermont. So you got to help me, and I'll let you tell your degree because I think it's an interesting trajectory. But talk about going from Baltimore to Vermont.
Absolutely. So yeah, as you said, I'm Baltimore born and bred. Grew up in Mount Washington. I attended the University of Vermont, and I have a forestry degree from there. What I tell most people is that means I've taken a college level chemistry class, so I understand some basic science. So I spent and continue to spend a lot of time outdoors. I was an Eagle Scout growing up. I did a lot of backpacking, a lot of canoeing. I spent a semester away in high school at a school called the Mountain School in Vermont. Okay. I really fell in love with the forest there. And I, at the time, wanted to be a forester. So it was really an amazing experience. I got to spend a lot of time outside. Almost every day, our labs were outside, running around in the woods, measuring trees, looking at different wildlife indicators, things like that. So really a great experience for me. But obviously, I've changed course since then.
Just a tiny bit. So what's one of the more memorable courses that you took in studying?
I would say dendrology, which is tree identification. So I was just telling you before, I can identify most trees that I see in the forest. Any sort of ornamental tree in somebody's yard might be a little different because it might be from somewhere else, but any native species I can more or less identify. And what it really taught me was to identify trees not based on their leaves, but based on their bark and other indicators, because you don't have leaves in the winter, right? So you have to be able to look at bark and different things like that and identify them.
That's just too cool. That is too cool. So are you an outdoorsy kind of guy? Do you like camping and being out in the outdoors?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, my only plane trip during the pandemic was to Wyoming to see one of my best friends, and we did a backpacking trip out there. So definitely love being outdoors. Love spending time outside. It's one of my favorite things to do for sure.
So what's a great park that you want? A nice park to get into, whether in Maryland or not? What's a park that you like?
I definitely like the Appalachian Trail section in Maryland. I think it's about 50 miles. I've done that section a couple times. Mm-hmm. Anywhere in Western Maryland is great. I went to the Savage River State Forest, I think it's called, in Western Maryland, like a year and a half ago in like 1.5 feet of snow. So that was a lot of fun. So I'm a big mountain guy. So definitely Western Maryland.
So you've been to other states. How does Maryland's kind of trails and park compare to some other states?
I think what's really cool about Maryland is that we have it all, right? So you can drive 3 hours from Baltimore, you can be at the beach. You can drive 3 hours west, you can be in the mountains. We really have everything, even down to what's called a serpentine ecosystem just outside of Baltimore, which is a pretty unique kind of droughty, deserty looking place. There's a place called Soldier's Delight in Owings Mills that has a pretty unique ecosystem. So I think we really have it all.
So you have an eye. So when you're out in nature, you have this different eye. You're not just looking at it just for the sake of the nature and the beauty. You actually see it. There's a science to what you see with the trees as well, don't you?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Maybe it annoys my wife a little bit because I'm always interesting plants and things that I see that I'm like, this shouldn't be here, or this is really unique, or whatever. But yeah, I think I do have a different eye when I go out, even just around my neighborhood walking the dog. I think a lot of people look at nature in different ways, and maybe I have a more of a detailed look at it, which maybe to my detriment too.
So talk me through the path of, forestry to the Maryland Israeli Development Center, and then obviously talk about the center.
Yeah, so about halfway through college, I decided I did not want to be a forester, and the main reason why was I wanted to be around people. Certainly, forestry involves people and involves different stakeholders and things like that. But I wanted to be
around trees. You're mostly around trees. You ain't around a whole lot of people.
And trees are very good listeners. They're not such good talkers. So, so that was kind of a big shift in my college career. It was a little too late to change majors, so I picked up a poli-sci minor. I thought I wanted to be an attorney at the time. I took the LSATs actually a couple times. Decided not to do that. I graduated in 2009. The market had just crashed, and I was told by our career center, "You're not going to get a job," basically. So I took that and grabbed an AmeriCorps position in Central New Jersey, working at a Jewish Family and Children's Service for a couple of years, which was an amazing experience and really set me on the trajectory that I am on now. Certainly the nonprofit world, the Jewish communal world, was something I never thought I'd be working in, but I really fell in love with it. And again, that connection that you have with people working in the nonprofit world and now in the business world too, is something I really treasure and something I missed with the forestry degree. So I worked there for 2 or 3 years. The AmeriCorps position was about a year, and then I did a couple of other things, working in case management, managed the kosher food pantry, mental health intake. So I was really doing everything that a young college grad, everything that I was asked of, basically. And then I decided to move back home. I didn't have another job, but I always knew that Baltimore would be in my future. And an amazing opportunity opened up for me to work for Americans for Ben Gurion University, which raises funds and awareness for the university in Israel, but here in the States. I actually have some very odd connections to that university and to that particular part of Israel, so it all kind of worked out in a really interesting way. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity. I did that for about a decade. Most recently, I was the director of the Washington-Baltimore region, working in major gifts fundraising for the university. And that was a really, really incredible experience, and I think really set me up really well for this current position with the Maryland Israel Development Center. And I'll just tell you briefly what we do, and then I'm sure we can get into it further. So we were founded about 30 years ago. We're a public-private partnership organization funded by the Maryland Department of Commerce, the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, a little bit through membership, and a little bit through Montgomery County as well. And our main goal is to foster business and commerce between the state of Maryland and Israel, whether that's Israeli companies moving to Maryland to set up an office, or the other way, Maryland companies looking to work with Israeli companies. Anything to do with business between the two, we like to have our hands in and be able to help. We're really in the matchmaking business, so we provide services for companies looking to do deals. We have a broad network of service providers, of industry experts, academics, you name it, we have it. I think one of the things I just have to mention is we've had the same executive director before me for 30 years, Barry Bogage, who is an incredible professional and somebody I've learned a lot from. I've known him for the 10 years I worked for Americans for Ben Gurion University. We did some events together and things, and I'd always admired his ability to bring people together. I think that's really what it's all about, is people from different backgrounds, whether professionally, personally, whatever, and bringing them together with the same goal.
Yeah, we just sent him a gift. He's been an incredible friend to the state, obviously to the country, and to TEDCO. And so just want to take a moment to say thank you for his service to Maryland and to the center. So I'm sure you probably have one. I know you just recently got there, but is there one or two stories that give people a sense of kind of how that relationship works and how that partnership and how that matchmaking works?
Sure. So I'll just give you a very classic classic example, and this is kind of different parts of different examples, just to give you the classic picture. An Israeli company is looking to move to the States, right? The States is the biggest market for Israeli companies to expand their business, whether that's life sciences, cybersecurity, defense, whatever the industry might be, the States are the place to be. And I think Maryland is the best place for these Israeli companies to relocate. So either we will entice them to move to Maryland through our matchmaking services. We can also set them up with incentive packages and grants and things like that. Or they might be moving to Maryland anyway. There's a lot of big draws that Maryland has, as you know, obviously, Hopkins, University of Maryland, NIH, all the other three-letter acronyms in Maryland are a big draw for companies looking to expand into the international market. Once they decide that they're going to move to Maryland, we can help them find office space. We can help them with accounting services, with legal services to set up their U.S. entity, certainly connections with elected officials, zoning issues, what have you, anything like that. We're there to help them with that. Customers, workforce development, anything that a startup to even an enterprise-sized company might need. We're here to help them with. We're here to help them with those services, and it's all free of charge. That's what people I think don't really know about us, is that we are a free service, particularly because I think the state of Maryland wants to see job creation here locally from these Israeli companies.
Now, does it work the other way? If a Maryland company wants to do business or set up a presence in Israel, how does that work?
Absolutely. We have an israeliwrap on the ground in Israel who can help with any services that those companies might need. The flow of goods and services is, I would say, a little bit different. Investments tends to be a big thing in Israel as far as American dollars flowing that way. So that's something we definitely help with. Imports and exports, you name it, we can certainly help.
Got it. And you may have just kind of answered the question we're about to ask, but it's probably worth the double click. Is, now are there other entities like this in other states? And I guess the real question is why Maryland would make this so special, but are there other entities in other states that are competing for these same types of opportunities?
Absolutely. And it's interesting, we all kind of work in different ways. So while I don't think I'm terribly special or organization is terribly special, we're very unique in terms of our funding and our services, the services that we provide. So there definitely are corollary organizations across the country. We meet quarterly. Definitely a lot of friendly competition among those. What I think sets Maryland apart is a few things. Number one, we're the highest educated workforce in the country. And I think that's a really big enticement for companies looking to move here. Proximity to DC is huge. Again, those three-letter acronyms, access to Congress, certainly, and everything else that DC brings, I think, is a huge factor. And then the strength of the Jewish community and the number of Israelis that live here in Maryland. There's communities both in Baltimore and outside of DC. They're here to help families moving, help them find schools, help them find the right places to get it. Certain Israeli products they can only get one place, things like that. So I think those are the main things.
Gotcha. And so folks might be wondering, some of our listeners, and again, thank you all for listening and watching all of our TEDCO Talks, and obviously this one here with David. What's the connection with TEDCO? And you kind of mentioned cyber and life sciences, which are obviously very strong. The Israelis are very much known for those, not other sectors too, but those two sectors are very well known. But talk about the connection, that what we're trying to do, and I'll just, for the sake of the audience, he and I are even talking about, do we make a trip to Israel to really build a better bond between some of our startups and the technology that's there, and try to bring some of that technology here back to the States.
Absolutely. So I think it's a natural partnership. I think what we do goes hand in hand with what TEDCO does. What TEDCO has done to foster business relationships and to help startups, particularly in any sort of tech or life sciences area, has been incredible. I mean, I was just perusing the website again this morning, and the impact that TEDCO has had on the state of Maryland is truly remarkable. So I think it's a natural partnership. We work with a lot of startups, a lot of companies that need funding and resources and help, frankly. And so I think that that partnership, I know it's grown since TEDCO started, I believe, in the late 90s and continues to grow. I see a lot of areas for collaboration, especially as people are starting to travel again, as you mentioned. I think that's a huge part of what we do. One thing I'll just mention kind of on the side is we've all been living this Zoom world, which is great, and Zoom is fantastic, and it's made everybody's life so much easier. But there is nothing like breaking bread together,
Amen,
having coffee
amen, brother.
together.
Amen, brother. Amen. Oh, amen, amen. And I can't wait to do that with folks. And I was just talking to someone else about this, nothing to do with this morning, that we're going to have to learn to live with this. We're going to have to learn to live with various variants coming out. And yes, it's a difference. It's a difference in the flu to some degree, but in some ways we got to manage it like the flu. And we're going to have to learn how to manage this thing going forward. Because we kids can't go back into our little caves and every time something we get scared about it. So I want to double click a little bit on the startups and how prevalent is it that a pure startup can take advantage of this kind of relationship? There's a little bit of a scale that they have to be at, or is it truly a pure startup can really take advantage of this opportunity?
I think any company can really take advantage of this opportunity. There is a sweet spot between very early stage startup and a large enterprise company that's well established that is good for us to work with just because of the nature of what we do. But we really can work with any startup, and anybody who's looking to have a presence in the States, we can really work with. But I think there is a sweet spot where our services mesh really well with a company's needs, and that's maybe not quite so early stage startup. They need to have some funding, I would say, to be in that sweet spot, and they need to be ready to hire people in Maryland too.
Got it. That makes sense. And you have any stats of how many over the course of those 30 years have folks have taken advantage of that have taken advantage of the services that the center has provided?
Absolutely. So I don't have stats on our 30-year history. My guess is there'd be hundreds of companies that have taken advantage of the services. We have done economic impact studies that I was reviewing this morning and all those good things too. What I can say is currently there are 35 companies with a presence in Maryland, 35 Israeli companies with a presence in Maryland, ranging from a couple of hundred people to one person with their office in Maryland. And those companies range all of the verticals or sectors that we know and love in Maryland. So from that standpoint, we are actively working with 35 companies, and there's maybe half a dozen in the pipeline now that are seriously considering a move to Maryland too.
Outstanding. So again, I know you just got there, but I'm sure you got thoughts on kind of what's the plan over the next 3 to 5 years? Kind of how are you thinking about that? Absolutely.
So it's interesting coming on the heels of frankly a legend like Barry, because in a lot of ways I think what we do runs extremely well, and I think we are a really well-oiled machine. And I think the network that Barry has built is something that I really value and something that we need to really maintain and continue those relationships. That being said, there are a few things, and I think it's interesting. We were just talking about COVID. Emerging from COVID, I think my vision or my goals match up with kind of everybody's as far as emerging from COVID. The first would be building our brand. Okay. A lot of people know who we are, not necessarily what we do on a granular level. I think they know that we help with business between Maryland and Israel, but the services that we provide, I think, are something that we need to really focus on getting that message out. Part of that definitely is a social media strategy, being more active on the various platforms, all those good things, which frankly is not my strength, but I know that it's something we need to be working on, especially in this day and age. So that's one thing. Building our sense of volunteerism. We are a nonprofit. We have an outstanding board that are incredible volunteers and devote countless hours to the cause. But I think there's more room for this sense of volunteerism, whether it's helping companies with various services or various advice, or helping me review various companies specifically in different sectors. So obviously I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I know a little bit. But having a group of go-to people that we can say, hey, what do you think about this company? What sort of services do you think we could provide them? That kind of thing, I think will be huge for us. And the last thing is just our programming. Like everybody else, we pivoted to a webinar series during COVID, which was really well received. And we did them once every month or two. And I'll be honest, I got pretty zoomed out of webinars in my last position. But the MIDCs, yeah, right. But the MIDCs were ones that I always made sure to tune into, because they were always bringing interesting technology companies in different sectors. So I want to continue that, even as hopefully COVID becomes an endemic and not a pandemic, or becomes endemic and not a pandemic. I definitely want to continue that. And the last thing, just as far as programming, we talked about this before, bringing people to Israel, bringing Israeli companies to Maryland. That's so key for what we do. Barry and the team have run a lot of successful delegations, specifically accelerator programs, working with different Israeli entities to bring companies to Maryland. And we're going to definitely continue that this year.
Congratulations, good stuff. So I'm sure Tammy and the team will put up the website, but where, I'm assuming the website is where people can find more information. You want to say where your website is?
Absolutely, marylandisrael.org.
Maryland Israel. So yeah, and she will put it up on the screen as well. So you mentioned COVID a couple of times. This is more kind of talking just to David, not to the center. You know, what kind of kept you sane during COVID? How did you, particularly back in 20, when we were, you know, in pure lockdown mode? And I was joking when I was having dinner with someone the other night. I was joking how, you know, during that time, my wife and I, you know, our date night was Saturday. Would get, you know, put the gloves on, the mask on, and go to the grocery store and then wipe everything down to come back. That's all you could really do, was to go to the store. And so, you know, and we went through more stuff on Netflix and saw some bunch of old reruns of, I won't even bore you with some of the movies we saw. So, but what kept your sanity during those times?
I think those things you mentioned, finding ways to escape being in lockdown, I think was really key for us. So we talked about this before. I love nature. I love getting out in nature, but really taking time. I think we went on almost daily walks during lockdown, which was so nice, me and my wife, which was really great. Also the Netflix, watching the series I won't bore you with, and we're continuing to watch series that probably nobody's really paying attention to anymore. And I think in addition to that, sports, I was so happy when baseball came back. I'm a huge O's fan. So although I couldn't go to the games, I could at least watch the games. It was for those 3 hours, it was like everything was normal. There weren't any fans in the stands, but the game was normal.
Well, is there anything that you started doing or stopped doing during that you say, you know, I want to keep doing that. I want to really amplify that as we move to this, you know, post-pandemic space?
So personally, I would say exercising and getting out in nature more. That was difficult in the beginning, but then I've really made a point of doing that. And then I think on the professional side and what we do also, it's taking the time to actually do work and not spend all day on Zoom. I could, if I wanted to, I could fill every hour with Zoom meetings, right? But taking the time to sit back, go through emails, actually write things down, take notes, think about the bigger picture. It was a good chance, I think, to pull back a little bit and take more of the 30,000-foot view.
You know, I know we all complain about, you know, long commutes into an office, but I think you missed that. You missed that transition time when you can transition, particularly on the way home from the work, you know, to, you know, that 30 for whatever it is or might have been. And, you know, the transition time is now just, you know, for me, just going down up and down the stairs, you know, and so and then also this computer is always there, and you can always have it available. The availability of the Zoom, I think we all have to start to draw the line of, you know, this is work, this is home, it's convenient, but it's still home. And like Buddy of mine was telling me this morning, being present, being more present.
Yeah, I agree. I've had to work really hard on that. I actually worked from home for about 2 years before lockdown in 2020. So I kind of knew what I was doing. But of course, working from home, I was still going out for meetings and things like that. Right. I really try to separate as much as I can, even things like making sure I'm wearing a shirt for a Zoom meeting, right? I might not be in a full suit now, but I'm wearing a blazer, right? You've got your golf gear on. You've got your game face on, right? I think
Yeah.
that was really important for me to make that distinction. And it's funny you mentioned commuting. I used to commute in my last position to downtown Bethesda from Baltimore City, so it was like almost 2 hours each way, and I do not miss that.
Ooh. Oh, that's a bit much. 4 hours a day in the car. Ooh.
So with no traffic, it should be an hour, but of course, DC traffic, I left
Yeah,
myself
definitely.
about 2 hours each way. So it was, I don't
That's
miss
brutal.
that whatsoever.
That's brutal. Well, look, Dave, as we close out, I want to have a little bit more fun as we close out. I want to, and probably is even going to embarrass you a little bit, but again, Baltimore guy. So tell me, let's start with favorite spot in Baltimore that you like going to.
Camden Yards, 100%. That's my computer. I'm looking at my second screen right now. That's my computer desktop background. That's my happy place. Even win or lose, that's where I feel happy.
It's a great spot. So it's just at any time, or actually when it's a baseball game, or just the area around Camden Yards?
I'd say a baseball game, because
Baseball
there's
game.
something about hearing the crack of the bat and the snap of the leather, and just the smell of a baseball game, the grass, the popcorn, baseball game at Camden Yards for sure.
So this is a kind of a double. So traditional Baltimore food that you like, and favorite Baltimore restaurant.
Interesting. Okay. So it's funny, I was raised kosher style. So I grew up not eating crabs. That's the obvious go. I'm a big Coddy fan. I like Coddies a lot. I think they're a pretty underrated Baltimore food. So I'll go with that. Yeah, I'll go with Coddies. And I'm sorry, was the other question?
Restaurant.
It's got to be Petit Louis.
Yeah. And finally, Baltimore event. Like I said, the Preakness is going to be, Pimlico's going to be this weekend, but favorite Baltimore event you like attending?
I think this was a one-off, or maybe it happened 2 years, but this always sticks in my mind when I'm asked that. The Grand Prix that was held here maybe 10 or 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really cool to hear those loud cars rolling down Pratt Street. That was really, really amazing. So I know that's not a perennial event. I'd love to see it come back. That was very cool.
We know they started a Formula One circuit underwritten by Netflix. They just did one in Miami. I think Baltimore's on the circuit, but they've got like 5 or 6 cities they're trying to expand. But yeah, they're trying to bring Formula One racing to the States.
So, yeah, I would be there. That would be so cool. I'm not a huge racing fan. I've gotten into F1 a little bit recently, but F1 cars racing in downtown Baltimore would be pretty cool.
Our attorney for TEDCO loves doing. Actually, he's going on vacation, I think, in a couple of days, and that's what he does. He has a car down in Florida that does F1 racing.
Wow.
He goes to Monaco once a year, so yeah, it's a big deal for him.
Very cool. Very
cool. David, thank you for your time. Again, like I said, thank you for your service. Looking forward to spending, like I said, spending some time with you. Obviously making a trip to the Holy Land. I can't wait for that to happen. So thank you for all you do. Appreciate you being on TEDCO Talks today. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate the continued support of TEDCO Talks. We continue to get great support. Thank you for the Marcom team here at TEDCO. As always, I wish you all safety, sanity, healthiness, and blessings. Take care until the next time. This is Troy Lamel Stovall, CEO of TEDCO. Take care.